And I'm joined as always by my co-host, the one and the only.
I go by Cool McCain. Sometimes they call me the jerk, the rude guy. Those probably fit as well.
People other than me call you that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, just double checking. But you know what else they call us?
The play caller.
All right. So cool. Yeah. I mean, I feel like there's this big story that happened yesterday with the Deshaun Watson case. We had some finality to the situation. So let me hear your thoughts, man.
Well, it's quite simple, man. This is ridiculous. First off, this is, of course, my opinion. I don't care if anyone shares it. It's ridiculous. The original suspension was basically what the maximum that has been given for someone in this close to similar situation. That's why the arbitrator ruled on it. Both parties had the chance to appeal. The NFLPA decided not to. The NFL said they weren't, and then went back on their word, which shouldn't be too much of a surprise. But here's what's the point that I think a lot of people are missing. The appointed ruler that was going to rule on the appeal came out and said earlier this week, I'm not ruling until all the cases are settled. We still have cases that are pending. We don't know how long those cases were going to take to get settled. So Deshaun Watson was put in a situation of, I don't even know what the ruling is going to be. I have to wait to hear the ruling. Then I have to go through the appeals process with the courts after the ruling. That was going to take longer than this suspension because they were purposely dragging this out to give the NFL the leverage. So at that point, take the 11 games, because obviously the NFL wanted more, but the ruling was 6. So expecting him to take a year or take 12 games that have to be reinstated and all that foolishness, that was never really going to happen because he wasn't going to do that. So I think they went to him and said, look, man, the 6 games is not going to fly. The backlash from that has been egregiously negative by the people who feel like he did something. Want to retract and say, it's quite simply, legal proceedings, he was not found guilty of any of those complaints. Now, court of public opinion can feel how they want, but legally proceedings, he was not convicted of anything. He was not taken to trial because there was not this thing called evidence. We're not in Russia. Because we don't like what someone's been convinced of or what someone said someone did, we don't go and say that they're guilty. Okay? What he was found guilty of was of breach of the NFL conduct policy. No one's been fined over 6 games for that in similar situations before, but he was fined, but they wanted to give him a lot more because of the public outcry. It doesn't matter who it is. There are some people who are always going to jump to you did it. There are always some people who are going to jump to you didn't do it, and there's going to be a group of people, there's going to be people that fluctuate all the way on that until they meet in the middle and all the way out. The simple fact of the matter is this made the most sense for Deshaun Watson and his team once they realized the situation they were put in. They were going to wait until every case was gone before they ruled. That could be week 2, week 3 of the season. Then they would have had to go through the process of attempting to appeal. Right? So then if they attempt to appeal it and they don't win the appeal, then he's probably gone for the rest of the season because he could play during that time frame. But then if he's lost, then he still has to go out the full appeal, whatever they decide for him. So the best case for him to get on the field and know he was on the field was to get them to push it back as much as they could, which he got it back to 11 games and a $5 million fine. He gets back in time to play the Texans. I've already seen a lot of the group of people who felt he was guilty say, 11 games, it works for me. I wish it was the whole season, but I could work with 11 games. That's all the NFL wanted out of this whole situation. All the NFL wanted was for once to be able to say, yes, we did what people wanted, and we got the bad guy, even though it wasn't the crime that he was convicted of, we got the bad guy, we made people feel good about the NFL, that we're tough guys. That's pretty much, in my opinion, all this is. So it's happened. It is what it is. He's got it cleared now. The NFL couldn't come back and try to add more games onto it. They can't do anything else about it as long as he does what he's supposed to do, and that's go to the sessions and stay out of trouble again. He does that, he's good to go. So in his situation, it was wise for him to go ahead and do this. I know people are going to spring anywhere on the spectrum. Some people are going to say, oh, he did it, that's why he went ahead and agreed to this. And some people are going to say, well, he knew that this wasn't going to happen and that wasn't going to happen. We don't know any of that. What we do know is that he knew this was the best way for him to get back on the field by week 12. And that's what he's done. 11-week suspension. The team has a bye week. He'll be back to see the Texans, and he's cleared. As long as nothing else happens, they can't do anything else to him. They've agreed to that.
I was trying to find, because I had not heard or saw anywhere where Peter Harvey actually came out and said that he would not make a decision until the cases were settled. I did see that he said that he wasn't going to make a decision until they reached a complete impasse in negotiations.
They said, I read an article yesterday. I didn't tag it because there's no need to. I could find it, but we're live. We should probably speak the time, talk about the other stuff. I wouldn't have said it if I didn't read it. That's how we roll.
Well, I just like to, read things too. So, yeah. So I don't know.
I'll find it and send it to you.
Your brother said, "What's up?" And Woody says that he's still going to say he would remain the Texans if those allegations weren't real. So here's my thing. We agree on a lot of things with this. A couple of things that we don't necessarily fully agree on, but where we do agree is, regardless of how you feel about Deshaun Watson, whether you feel he's guilty, not guilty, whatever the case is, the fact of the matter is none of us have actually seen the evidence. So none of us are qualified to even make a decision on whether this dude is truly guilty or not, right? And we've been very adamant on the show that we're not saying he's innocent, but we've been very adamant in saying that we can't know for a fact that he's guilty. And I think that's a very important thing to actually take note of. So, as you pointed out, as the first arbitrator pointed out, the reason that the suspension was 6 games was because that's what the NFL had previously given for very similar violations of the personal conduct policy. Allow me to repeat that. Deshaun Watson is not being suspended for what he is alleged to have done with these therapists. He was suspended for violation of the personal conduct policy. So when you look at it from that perspective, people who have been in similar situations that were suspended for personal conduct in similar situations, the maximum that anyone had received to that point is 6 games. The arbitrator made it clear that she clearly thinks that Deshaun Watson is guilty. She wanted to give him more than 6 games. And she basically threw the NFL under the bus and said, my hands were tied. You did this based on your previous own decisions. Then the NFL decided to, go ahead and appeal it. Like you said, originally they said that they would stand by it. I think at that point they felt a bit more comfortable. We know the exact moment the NFL started being less comfortable in the opinion. I'm sure she probably went to the NFL and told them she wanted to give a longer suspension, but felt that her hands were tied. And they started getting nervous. And that's when they started leaking out that they wanted a year, or the indefinite suspension with a minimum of a year, right? That's the moment they started getting nervous that it wasn't going to go in their favor. I wouldn't be surprised if they knew exactly what the ruling was going to be at that time. Deshaun Watson's team knew that they were going to get the 6 games. Or maybe they felt like they could still, get a little less than that. But there was a point where the NFL actually put 12 games and a $10 billion fine on the table. Deshaun Watson's camp came back and said, we'll accept 8 games with no fines. So, at the point that Roger Goodell basically says, okay, we're appealing this. It's now back in my court. I can now do whatever I want. I'm going to put this in somebody else's hands so that you are going to be less likely to sue, because let's be honest, the NFL did not want this to go to court. because if this goes into a courtroom, now we start talking about why was Robert Kraft not punished this severely? Because I'm sorry, I don't really see a whole lot of difference between the situations. They both involved the exact same thing, right? So why are you not holding an owner to the same standard? The NFL didn't want that. So that's why they started putting all this stuff out. That's why the NFL, in my opinion, I think put this dude in charge to get him to stall this thing out in hopes that they'd be able to settle it. And all the NFL really wanted was to be able to get enough games out of this to be able to say, see, we took it seriously. They made Deshaun Watson come out, give his little like half, I'm not even gonna say it, but his little half sincere apology. And they made him commit to therapy, and they're going to donate the money that he's being fined to all these little community things so the NFL can maintain their reputation and their image and say that we took this seriously and we did it. Just like we talked about with player safety numerous times, the NFL does not care. At the end of the day, Deshaun Watson, I feel, took this suspension because he knew that if he didn't, and the arbitrator who Goodell, or I don't even know if he's an arbitrator at this point, decision maker, that Goodell appointed, was going to hand out whatever punishment the NFL told him to at the end of the day. So at the end of the day, if Deshaun Watson wanted to get back on the field, this was a smart play for him. And like you said, I don't take this as a sign of saying I'm guilty. I take this as very much like we talked about the Brittany Griner situation, where she had to plead guilty, whether she was guilty or not, in order to move the process forward. This was the only way Deshaun Watson was getting back on the field this year.
Oh, and also that the $2 million that the NFL and the NFLPA are going to put in, $1 million each to donate, shows how serious they are about really helping out.
So Woody says that's the problem. The fact we don't know the facts, but we know the numbers, and he's already been condemned as guilty. Yeah, Woody, I've been saying this for months that, or really years, that these kind of things shouldn't come out. So Billy V says that definitely wasn't a half sincere apology. I'm not sure if you feel that it was a fully sincere apology, or if you're saying there was no sincerity in it whatsoever.
Well, I say this, man. If I'm Deshaun Watson and I didn't do what I was accused of, yeah, I'm going to come out and give you the kind of apology that I gave, because I really didn't do anything. You just wanted to set an example for me for things like what happened with Ray Rice in different situations that you didn't handle properly. You're just using me for a scapegoat. And, as one of my friends would say, piss on you. And I did the press conference. It is what it is.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I'm not blaming Deshaun Watson for having a half sincere or no sincere. Billy V says 0% for sure. I'm not blaming him for not being sincere as an apology, because like you said, if you're saying that you're innocent, I wouldn't expect you to come out and be able to give us a sincere apology, because if you don't feel like you did anything wrong, then what would you be sincerely apologizing for? You clearly, the moment that apology came out, I told like several people that day, I was like, well, we're going to have a settlement come here real soon. Because that was so obvious when he came out and apologized that they got a settlement in place and this is part of it.
Yep.
So yeah, Cleveland will take a fourth.
Well, they're moving forward with Jacoby Brissett, which I don't think is a bad idea. He's going to get.
I think it's a terrible idea, but for personal reasons.
Yeah, I think it's. I don't think it's a bad idea. He played decently when he was the Colts starting quarterback. He's got a couple of good running backs. One is disgruntled, but he's really got three pretty good running backs there. Wide receiver wise, he has some quality weapons. He's got a really great tight end from the U. So, I mean, he's got a lot of weapons.
Billy, I'm going to tell you, if he thought that, if he was doing that because he thought it would make him look good, he needs to hire a brand new PR person.
I'll say this, man. For me, as a if I was a professional athlete, right, and I was in this situation, you're only doing that press conference if that's mandated.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yep.
again, whether he did it or not, he seems to believe that he did not do anything.
Right.
And that's the way he acted, like based on what he said, how he said it, body language, and everything. I'm really just going through the motions. I don't feel I should be in this situation.
Right. Yeah.
And
I mean, I agree.
It's smart to kind of do that though, because you get it. The biggest thing is it's over with. You don't have to wait for everyone to settle or anything. It's over with now. Because one lady is saying, I'm not going to settle because I don't see remorse and blah, blah, blah. Well, you cannot settle all you want to, man. He's not going to go to court for it. And he's already been punished. So take your money or don't get anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, man, I'm just glad we don't have to hear about it anymore.
So, well, that's the problem. It's not going away. It's not going to go away.
So Billy agrees. One thing I was saying is, this kind of goes back to what Woody was commenting on earlier too. During that preseason game, there was some Jacksonville fans who had some choice words for Deshaun Watson, and we try to keep this a little family friendly, so I'm not going to repeat them on here. But the fact of the matter is that this is why we need better laws protecting men from allegations, right? Until you are actually proven guilty. Because now, no matter what, I mean, you could have 23 of the 24, or how many ever women come out and say, I lied. It was all for money. He's completely innocent. And if that 24 person doesn't come out, you're going to still have people that are going to chant things like this and accuse him of things for the rest of his life. Or you're going to have people who go, well, they only come out saying they lied because they got paid.
Yep. The fact of the matter is, this all spiraled out of control because her lawyer for the original person decided to make this into a public spectacle, knowing that this was going to end up being the outcome at some point. Yep. It is what it is, but that's what really happened. And, like I said, not saying what he did or didn't do. I'm not there. No one was there but him and those individual women. So anyone else that speculates on it, you're full of crap. But what I will say is simply this. He wasn't convicted. We have rules in place based on that, based on everything that happened before. He was giving a fair suspension, which I said he should get the whole time. The NFL lied. Just when I said, okay, well, maybe the NFL Players Association has a little bit of a backbone, they crumpled again. So they're back to being just soft puppets. Congratulations. You've dropped back down to where I felt about you before. You had a chance, and you proved that you're puppets of the NFL.
Yeah. Now, one thing I will just kind of throw out there, man, is we also need to keep in mind that, in my opinion, the NFL handled this the wrong way, because right now you've basically punished him. You've kind of put an end to it, right? But what happens if some kind of evidence actually comes out to prove that he actually was guilty? Right? So now you've already punished him. You've already handed out the punishment. And this is why I have an issue with the fact that the NFL feels it's okay to punish people who haven't been found guilty by the law. Now, it's one thing if you get caught, taking pads or whatever, right? Because those are things that the NFL, they're doing drug tests. That's all internal, right? But for outside legal issues, why are you able to do this?
Well, the thing is,
the issue I have.
You have an arbitrator. You gave them power. Mm-hmm. The problem comes in the Players Association not manning up in those negotiations for the players and saying, look, you're not going to be able to make the secondary decision either, Roger Goodell. We're going to go to another arbitrator another independent arbitrator if you don't agree with the first one. And then based on that ruling, it's it. That was the NFL Players Association. I actually read through some of it earlier. And honestly, if they had done that, we wouldn't be in this situation. Deshaun Watson probably would have had the same 6, possibly like 8 games. They may have thrown on, like, tacked on like 2 more, a second arbitrator that's independent, but they weren't going to go up like that. And you didn't do anything for yourselves by giving pseudo authority to an outside person, but then allowing it to revert right back to the NFL.
Yeah.
That's just for show.
The only real purpose that having the arbitrator even served in all this, and this is a very minor thing, but it is important, and I think in some cases, is if the arbitrator had come out and said, I do not feel there is sufficient evidence here for this player to be suspended, the NFL cannot appeal that decision. They can only appeal if the arbitrator actually finds that the player is guilty. That's it. That's the only benefit this whole process actually adds to any of this.
Well, I'll say this, from what I was reading, even if like they were found guilty or not guilty, they actually could have appealed based on what I was reading when I was actually reading through it. Both parties have the option. So say they found him guilty, the NFL Players Association had the option to say, we're appealing you finding him guilty or whatever. Also, the NFL had the option to say, well, we think he is guilty, so we're going to appeal that too. That's actually, from what I read, is what's built into it. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter because the NFL Players Association is never going to challenge the NFL. They're just another arm of lackeys for the NFL, so it doesn't really matter. It's always going to go back to where the NFL has the final say because the NFL runs the NFL Players Association pretty much, and that's sad. So one day maybe they'll get a leader. I think honestly the NFL Players Association needs to start doing like other sports and allow players to run it, and not these guys that used to work in the office like DeMar Smith and stuff, because they're just yes men for the NFL. Start bringing in active players like other sports do and allow them to be the heads. That's what you need to do to clean up this ridiculous situation that you have with the NFL, but we're even in this situation with Deshaun Watson or anybody else. But we spent quite a bit of time on Deshaun Watson. I think we got a couple more things we want to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, man, I figured, I was hoping that some of our people was going to be able to come tonight, but this isn't going to be the usual time. So just give people, maybe if you haven't tuned in the last couple of weeks, give you a little heads up about what's going on. Is Tuesday nights. It's 9:30, correct? Am I getting the time right? 9 p.m. Yep. Eastern Standard Time on Tuesdays. The NFL Matchup Madness. You can still find that right here at playcolorsportstalk.com. But every week we're going to have representatives from all 32 teams, or at least the ones who don't have bye weeks, actually come on to the show, and we're going to bring up each matchup on, and they're going to go head to head with each other, and they're going to debate about why their team is going to win that week. So what we've been doing is bringing some of the people that's going to be representing on that show. And unfortunately, it looks like none of our NFC North people were able to join us tonight. But, it's all good. We'll go ahead and talk a little bit about the NFC North. And then I see we already got some our AFC North people showing up over here in the green room. So we'll bring them on pretty quick after we go through this conversation. So yeah, man, I'm going to let you kick us off, man, with the team that finished in 4th place last year, the Detroit Lions. What are you expecting from them this year?
Well, I'm expecting the Detroit Lions to be bad. I'm just going to be straight up.
I want to hear what Billy V got to say about this too, by the way.
I expect the Detroit Lions to be bad, but I expect them to be better than last year. The thing is, every year, the teams, especially the teams who are not as good, get better. So part of that getting better is you get the opportunity to get good players. You get the opportunity to get the high draft picks. You have the money to pay free agents. You become more of a destination. So Detroit has improved their team. I don't think they've improved enough to catch the number 1 team in the division. This has been a division where historically, besides maybe a year here or there in the last probably 20 years, Green Bay's pretty much ran this division. So if you're anyone besides Green Bay, you're fighting for second place. Second place might be 6-10, might be 8-9. It might be 6-11, maybe 7-10. We don't know, but we do know that you'd be essentially fighting for second place based on what you've seen. I think Detroit still has to figure out the answer at quarterback. I don't think it's Jared Goff long term. I don't think Detroit felt that way either when they made the trade, but they wanted to get the picks, and they did what they needed to do to make that happen. Now, I also think that Detroit is going to be better than a lot of people think in the passing game. You've got some guys that have been there. They've had a chance to grow and develop over a year, get some chemistry with Jared Goff. Hawkinson's a real good tight end. So there are weapons there.
Yep.
The defense is not atrocious. I think it's a little less than middle of the pack right now. They've made additions there as well. They're going to have a chance to, just be better. Detroit is like a really bad team that's working on being a little bit better every year. I think this is a year where we'll see them make some improvements.
Yeah, man. When I look at this Detroit team, you're talking about a team that last year that went 3-13, and for some reason, a lot of people have them like making the playoffs this year and just talking craziness. And I'm like, yeah, right. They were who we thought they were, right? And the thing is, I think they're gonna win more games this year. I think they're an improved team. I mean, listen, we all laughed at Dan Campbell last year when he came out before the season. He was at the press conferences, and you're like, this dude been sucking down too many protein shakes. You know what I'm saying? Like, dude ain't right in the head, man. Something wrong with him. We thought he was a joke, but he really impressed me last year. He actually did a solid job coaching the team. He got guys playing hard. I don't have HBO, so I haven't been watching Hard Knocks, but I've been hearing a couple people talk about it to say, the team really is putting emphasis on being physical and things like that. The thing is, people talk about that being old school football and it not being the new way of doing things. But here's the reality. Teams that have been consistently good the last few years, a lot of them have been the teams that beat you up, right? Because most guys aren't used to getting hit in the mouth anymore because it's so much finesse. So when you get those physical teams, it's an intimidation factor. So I think Detroit's on a good path. I think they're going to get better. I think Dan Campbell's a better coach than I gave him credit for. And there's a lot of people getting credit for. But playoffs, settle down just a little bit, folks. They might be better than the Bears. But let's settle down a little bit on the playoff talk, okay?
Playoffs. Come on now. That's quite a reach. But no, I mean, you've already said what needs to be said. They'll be better. That's the thing. Yeah. They'll be better. Yeah.
Now, speaking of a team that might not just not be better, but they might even be worse. Chicago Bears.
There's not a lot that you can say.
There's a lot you can say, but not much positive.
Not a lot positive you can say about the Chicago Bears. Basically, man, we know coaching change. So you got to implement a new philosophy. That's never fun just because of the simple fact everyone's got to learn all over again.
So Billy V says he agrees with almost everything. Yeah, however, the Bears and Vikings have new coaches, and Green Bay lost a few decent pieces. So technically, the Lions have an actual shot at win the division.
No, I can't agree with that, sir. Yeah, I cannot agree with that.
It's like that Dumb and Dumber chance. It's like you're telling me there's a chance.
Yeah, a chance for second place in the division, but I can't agree that they have a chance for first. It's just not. I just can't agree with that. And like I said, it's not a knock on them. It's just even without those things, the best quarterback of your division by far is Aaron Rodgers.
Not even close.
Right. So if you have the
Kirk
best quarterback,
Cousins is actually the second best.
You mean the White Dak Prescott is the second best?
Yes.
Okay. I'd love to say that when I get the opportunity.
So as Woody points out, the Bears are about to lose Roquan Smith. They've already
Yeah,
lost Khalil Mack.
Yeah. So a lot of that vaunted monster defense is probably not going to be there. So when you look at with the Bears, let's talk about the wide receivers first, right? Let me tell you the top 6 wide receivers on their depth chart, right? 𝐿 St. Brown, Darnell Mooney, Byron Pringle, N'Keal Harry, Velus Jones Jr., and Daz Newsome. Besides N'Keal Harry, who is actually not even a starter on this depth chart, do you really know any of those names? Maybe Mooney, because he was drafted by them. He did play a little bit. But besides those 2 names, do you even know who 𝐿 St. Brown or Byron Pringle are?
I actually do know St. Brown by name.
Velus
if you show me a
Jr.,
picture of him, I wouldn't be able to identify him.
Daz Newsome. No, you don't. So the point I'm making is, if I can't even ID you on the field without just knowing your name, because 𝐿 is a different name. So that in itself, you're going to know this guy because the name is going to stick out to you.
Yeah.
But as a NFL player, these are not guys that are going to be great targets for Justin Fields. I don't think. Right. They could surprise because it happens from time to time. These guys you don't know, that just come out of nowhere and they end up being really great receivers. But you look at that, like you said, defense, some guys are gone, so you're trying to get other people in certain places. And I just got to say, when I look down this roster, Robert Quinn is probably the most notable guy that pops to my head, and Roquan Smith, who doesn't want to be there anymore. Mm-hmm. Right. And they got some other guys like Jalen Johnson at corner. They have guys in the draft that are predicted to be their top 2. One of the top safeties and one of the top corners. So you're depending on draft picks in this year's draft, 2nd-round draft picks, to be starters on your team from day one, based on your depth chart. Yeah. That tells me that this is a team that knows they're in rebuild mode. A lot of people have said things like, this is a do-or-die year for for Justin Fields. How can this possibly be a do-or-die year for Justin Fields? This is his 2nd year. It's going to be his 1st year. You're coming into the season as a starter, and you don't have the weapons for him, right? You just don't have the weapons. 𝐂𝐿 is your top tight end. And 𝐂𝐿, he's not garbage, but I had him in fantasy last year. He played a lot, not a lot of production. He would have to turn into, I think, 1,000-yard receiver or plus, or close to it, maybe 900, somewhere around 1,000, for them to have a chance to even be as good as they were last year. Yeah. And this is no shot to Bears fans because, again, you can surprise, but based on who you have, new coaching staff, young quarterback, not a lot of veteran depth at receiver, this is going to be a tough year. And I do agree that I think they're going to be the 3-13 team this year.
Yeah, I get them going backwards. And I mean, I'm a huge Justin Fields fan. That's actually who I was hoping that we were going to draft originally. So, I would love to see him actually be successful, but I just don't see it happening with this organization, man. I really don't. So when people talk about this being a do or die year for him, I assume they mean do or die as in this is the year that he's going to maybe, decide that he wants to get traded, ask for a trade out of there like everybody else did. Maybe that's what they mean.
I mean, there's some talent on the team. Like I said, I'm not saying there's not some talent, but I just don't see enough from top to bottom, especially offensively, to put points on the board. Even if you have a monster defense, if you can't move the ball, put points on the board, it's going to be a difficult situation. David Montgomery is a starting running back. We all know about David Montgomery.
Yeah. So, yeah. So I think we're in agreement, man. Sounds like we both feel the Bears are going to be at the bottom of this division. So let's move on to the Vikings, and let's go ahead and bring Woody's comment up. I saved this just for when we move to the Vikings. Kirk is the best camp counselor quarterback.
Well, I don't know, Woody. Apparently, Dak is just as good.
So Billy V just add the Lions played well during the second half of the season after changing offensive coordinators. O-line was banged up. Now they're healthy. Look, man, we get it, man. I mean, you're a Lions fan. You haven't had optimism in a very long time.
Well, I'll say this. I'm not saying
I
you're going
feel
to be the
you.
worst team this year. We're saying you're
Yeah.
going to have more wins. Chicago's going to be the worst team.
Yeah. And we're saying that you're going to be better, but you're not going to
Yeah.
be one of the top 7 teams in the NFC.
Nah.
That's what we're saying.
But you will be better. I do agree. I think you will be better.
Yeah.
Y'all
are on the right
week
path.
1. But you won't win week 1, but you'll be better.
It definitely won't.
Now, Minnesota. Dak is part of the whack boys. Love it. I just love the fact that when he said that. And then Billy V says softer schedule. Well, I can guarantee this, Billy V. Everyone is playing you is thinking, oh, win.
Uh-huh.
Now, some of them are going to be wrong because I don't think you're going to be as bad as last year. But trust me, people are looking at you to say, well, you're looking at your schedule.
Yeah, I mean, it's, that's one of those things, man. But yeah, the Vikings, this is a tough team, man. Their defense is questionable, right? The running game, Dalvin Cook, we know is one of the top running backs in the league.
When he
Justin
plays.
Jefferson is one of the top wide receivers in the league.
He does play all the time.
Yeah. Adam Thielen is a very good wide receiver.
When he plays.
But you have Kirk Cousins. And consistently, Kirk Cousins has shown you that he's going to disappear in big moments. That's what Kirk Cousins does. I don't see how you're going to win. Like, they're going to win games, right? They're going to be in contention to be a playoff team. They're going to be there is talent on this roster. Now, the new coaching staff, maybe that helps, maybe it hurts, right? Because apparently there was a lot of issues last year with the coaching staff and Kirk Cousins. And now, everybody's, that's the reason he was struggling. I mean, listen, there's a guy in Washington right now that you talk a lot about, that the reason he's now on his 3rd team is because he's mentally soft. So if the coaching staff affected your ability to go out there and play that much, what does that say about you? Because Aaron Rodgers has been beefing with the Packers organization for like 9-10 years now. And he still goes out and puts up MVP caliber seasons. You know why? Because he's not mentally soft.
Yeah, he's crazy a little bit. He's not mentally soft. I mean, you look at Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson, and KJ Osborne. That's a solid 3.
Yeah.
I
forgot about Osborne.
Behind them, you have some questionable guys, but they're learning from really good guys. So that's a plus. Tight end, they're starting Irv Smith, who actually has been there for a couple of years. So that's not, a new guy that doesn't know the system. You got Dalvin Cook, Alexander Madison, so you've got 2 really good running backs, and Madison puts up the same kind of numbers as Dalvin Cook when Dalvin does miss games, which he happens to miss games every year. Like you said, biggest thing is you start looking on defense. You see some names, you see Jordan Hicks, linebacker from Arizona, originally from Philadelphia. I think he's a good, solid linebacker. Eric Kendricks, obviously, a really great player. Patrick Peterson is going to be one of their corners, but then you start looking at some of the other people. Cameron Dantzler, okay, it's not horrible, but doesn't move the needle. Zadarius Smith, we don't know. It's kind of like, is he going to get it together, or is he going to be the dude that the Cowboys are claiming that he was, and that's why they got rid of him? Like, what's happening? So we don't know. A lot of questions, I think, at other positions on defense. Biggest thing for Minnesota is they're the team that offensively, in certain situations, they can put up enough points to overcome some of those deficiencies on defense. And I think that's the difference between them and the Bears and the Lions. I think the Lions, again, are going to be better than, the Bears. Depending on how Minnesota plays, the Lions could be just as good or better than Minnesota.
Right.
But you start to get into like, okay, what about winning the division? I don't see either one of those 3 teams being able to do that.
Yeah.
contend for it, be better than next year. I see the Lions moving up. I see the Vikings staying about the same, maybe a slight drop off. But at the end of the day, they're not going to be able to compete for this division. That's the truth of it.
Yeah. I mean, the Lions could potentially end up in second. I mean, if you
Yeah,
made
they
me
could.
pick right now, I will put the Vikings at 2 and the Lions at 3. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Lions actually overtake the Vikings. I wouldn't be shocked by that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked by that at all.
So got a shout out. What's up from Ian? Appreciate you tuning in. And I
Yes,
have
sir.
to
Yes, sir.
co-sign on this comment as we move into Green Bay. I have to go ahead and co-sign on Woody's comment here. Aaron Rodgers does a great job till he plays the 49ers in the playoffs, and then he chokes. I don't know so much that he chokes as much as that he just gets exposed because, that's what happens when, as Billy pointed out himself, you play in a fairly weaker conference or division. You rack up a bunch of cupcake wins, and then you actually have to play real teams.
Cupcakes.
So, speaking of the Packers, so obviously Aaron Rodgers, Hall of Fame quarterback, Super Bowl winning quarterback, MVP last year, right? Back-to-back MVP, right?
Back to back, reigning and defending.
Yeah. So can't question.
man a belt.
Yes, he can't question what he brings to the table, right? The running game, AJ Dillon, Aaron Jones, nice 1-2 punch, right? Offensive line is pretty decent. Who they throwing the ball to though? Because his favorite guy is now wearing a Raiders jersey.
Well, I can answer that for you, sir. He's now going to be throwing the ball to Allen Lazard, Sammy Watkins, and Randall Cobb. Now, he loves Randall Cobb. Him and Randall Cobb should have a lot of rapport built up.
Mm-hmm.
In practice, in an interview after practice, I believe that was 2 days ago, maybe, Aaron Rodgers was complaining on how a lot of the young wide receivers were, and just seemed to be kind of throwing that group under the bus before the season starts. So people are going to say, oh, Aaron Rodgers is being Aaron Rodgers, and he's going to be the downfall of that team. He's going to do all this foolishness now. He's going to do all this talk. No, MVS is gone, sir. But he's going to do all this talk, all this foolishness, and then season's going to come around, and he's going to be talking about these are his guys, and he's going to make somebody look good, right?
Yeah.
Sammy Watkins, if he can stay slightly healthy, I think he's got a chance to really flourish, because Rodgers has got to throw the ball around. He's got to throw the ball to all three of them. He's going to have to use Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon to catch the ball. Robert Tonyan. Big pickup for them is Mercedes Lewis out the backfield as a second tight end, excuse me. And what that's going to do is give them the ability to run 2 tight end sets if the wide receivers aren't quite cutting it, because Mercedes Lewis can play. He's never been a great tight end, but he's a solid tight end. He can catch, he can block, he can do whatever you need him to do. So that's a big pickup, like a sneak pickup for them. I think Sammy Watkins will be good for them and Allen Lazard as well, because if you don't have those guys, you got to start 2 of Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, and Amari Rodgers. So I think that's important to realize guys that may not be great, but guys that can do what needs to be done to help the team better, be guys that, you can spread the ball around. You're not going to go into a game looking at either of the top 3 wide receivers of Green Bay saying, we got to take this guy out of the game. So that allows whoever's in certain situations for matchups to be able to kind of get off some. Obviously, I don't think any of those guys can do it consistently, but I think all of them have the ability to do it a couple of games a year. And that may be all the Green Bay needs to do what they need to do to get to the playoffs. Now, I want to say this, and then I'll stop with Green Bay because I know we want to bring other guys on, get them time to talk about their division. But getting to the playoffs is not going to be difficult for Green Bay, I don't think, this year. Right. But when they get there, that's what the problem is going to be.
Yeah, I mean, defensively, we didn't even touch on the defense, but they got a really good defense.
Left that for you.
Over there. Like you said, we're going to get to other guys. I'm not going to go through all the names. But the defense is going to really keep this team going. You got Aaron Rodgers; he's going to be able to make anybody a little bit better. Christian Watson is a guy who is going to give you that speed element. They're hoping that maybe by the time they make the playoffs, that he's come on at that point and is acclimated to the game. Dobbs is a guy that a lot of people are getting a lot of hype in the preseason here and the training camp stuff. So a guy that maybe towards the end of the season they're hoping might kind of start to really click and do some big things for them. I think where they're going to run into problems is if you're not getting consistency out of Lazard and Watkins and Randall Cobb to where it makes a defense have to cue in on those guys and give those two younger guys third and fourth and maybe even fifth string corners to go against, they're going to struggle. So that's really, to me, where it comes down. But the defense is going to keep them in a lot of games. Aaron Rodgers is going to keep them in a lot of games. They're not going to make a problem making the playoffs. I think, like you said, once they get there, that's where the problems begin for Green Bay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So, real quick, we just say I think it's easy to pick Green Bay to win the division, but I'm telling you, the missionary man will spread his truth this year, and 𝐾𝐑 will own Green Bay. Okay. I don't know what you were on right now, but it must be
some good stuff, huh? But it's a possibility. I don't see it happening. Anything's possible, as Kevin Garnett said, but I don't really see it happening quite yet. But I think it's coming.
And Billy points out that without Adams, teams will stack the box on Green Bay and force Rodgers to throw a little more than he wants. I'm going to disagree with one slight part of that. The more than he wants to. Because Aaron Rodgers wants to throw the ball all the time.
Yes, he does. Yes,
all right, man. Well, with that, I want to real quickly acknowledge one of our sponsors, 𝐒𝐕. That's who we actually use to produce the show. So all these beautiful layouts y'all see are created using 𝐒𝐕 Pro Scenes. If you want to check it out, you can actually do so for free, and they give you access to all these awesome features, even on a free account. So you can find the link down in the description. So if you are a streamer like us, make sure you go check out 𝐒𝐕. And with that, man, I do want to go ahead and bring on our AFC North representative. And I gotta tell you, man, I thought you were pulling my leg when I saw this dude's name. I'm like, Tomlin. And he's a Steelers fan. I was like, is Mike Tomlin about to show up on my screen when you get up on here? I thought maybe you're trying to pull one over on me. So let's bring him on to let him introduce himself.
What's going on, man? Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, man, we can hear you, man. Yeah, how you doing tonight?
Hey, man, I'm doing good. I appreciate you letting me on here to talk about the greatest team in NFL history.
Definitely not the greatest team in Pennsylvania, but hey.
Yeah,
I mean, we can debate that another day. But yes, my name is Peyton Tomlin, born in Pittsburgh. So I am a native of Pittsburgh. My family is from Pittsburgh, but I currently live, y'all will love this one, in Baltimore. So, so you can imagine my life out here as I terrorize these rap birds about their team. And how they operate out here.
Can I do these kitty cats in Charlotte?
Yeah. Oh, man. But, I'm not quite sure what I should do for the introduction, but that's pretty much me. I go by PT, big-time Steeler fan. You see that, when you come from Pittsburgh, they wrap our babies in terrible towels when they're born. So we make sure that their whole life is great as they move forward,
I hear that, man. I hear that. Well, yeah, Peyton's going to be, of course, you can tell our Steelers rep. So we're going to, talk about the division with him. Also, he's another individual that you're going to be able to catch Tuesday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the NFL Matchup Madness. Now, we're going to be going by the actual NFL schedule. And I say that because that way you can kind of figure things out. You can check it out. You can see what's there. And then that NFL Matchup Madness, of course, is still going to be right here on playcallersportstalk.com. So make sure you're tuning in to us on Tuesday, starting September 6th. It's going to be crazy. We're going to bring it, and we're going to give the floor to Peyton, let him be the guy, because this is his division. And we might add a little sprinkle in there every once in a while. But, hey, if you're in a division, one of the things that people need to understand, if you're in a division, you know your team, but there's also 3 other teams that you're very familiar with because you play them twice a year, every year. So you pay a little bit of attention to those other teams. And you're going to see that coming up right now, guys and ladies.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the way we like to do this, man, we like to start at the bottom and work our way to the top. So talk to us about them Ravens, or what would you call them?
The Rat Birds.
The Rat Birds. Talk to us about the Rat Birds.
Nah,
That's
you know, I have nothing but respect for Baltimore, man. But the Baltimore Ravens, you know, their big thing right now is Lamar, right? You got to pay this guy. I got to figure this out. He's not playing in this upcoming preseason game either. So, and you took all of his wide receivers away. So, what will Baltimore look like this year? We don't know. We know they like to run the ball. They're gonna be a run-heavy team to protect Lamar from throwing. They're going to throw it to the tight ends. He has no wide receivers, so unless because they let Hollywood go. So in the hopes that they let Boykins go, because Boykins came to the Steelers. So they have, what's his name? Eaton, I believe that's his name. He's like a second-year receiver who they're going to bet their life on, and hopefully the running backs come in and they could run that style of football. But we all know Lamar has problems throwing that ball. So people like to cover Lamar and force him to throw the ball. And that's where he's been getting himself in a little bit of trouble. Now, I hope that he will do better this year because I'm a big fan of Lamar, to be honest with you. I think Lamar is probably one of the, top 2 or 3 quarterbacks easily in the league if you allow him to be Lamar and if he could throw that football better because his running is crazy. He's a video game, right? He's that joystick thing that you do with him. But if you could contain him from running, which the Steelers have done, our division does a good job in containing Lamar, but that's simply because, as y'all stated, we see him twice a year. Mm-hmm. So we could you can't stop him, but we could kind of control him a little bit. And once he could get that arm down, Baltimore would be a tough team to beat. But for this year, I think they're going to be in the middle of the pack. I don't see them being as good as a lot of these analysts say they're going to be. And I think this money problem that they're having is going to play a big factor, at least in the beginning of the season.
So, Peyton, I want to ask you why you're talking about Lamar. His offensive coordinator is Greg Knapp, who was also the offensive coordinator for us in San Francisco when we had Cap. Mm-hmm. And I felt that Greg Knapp trying to turn Kaepernick into more of a pocket passer, kind of trying to take away what he wanted to do, really hurt his game a lot. And I see him trying to do similar things with Lamar. Would you agree with that? Do you feel like the coaching is holding Lamar back even more so than the lack of receivers?
I don't think it's the coaching. I think that he doesn't have a top-tier receiver. He hasn't had one at all. The coaching is the coaching. I think you have to make him a throwing quarterback. It's cool to run, but even that we saw with Kaepernick, if you face better teams that have great linebacker play, it's difficult for them to then have to go back and become that passer. So if he could sit back there, scan his at least to his third read, and then move, he becomes way more deadlier than if he's looking at his first read, maybe his second one. Is no one is scared of their wide receivers, so they can play on one-on-one. You got to try to double that tight end that they have down there, though. And if you can stop that, Lamar's running, and now it's just a free-for-all to catch him. And if you can catch him, you beat the Ravens.
Yeah, that's for me, it's an interesting point. Like, I have a little bit of a different take on the Lamar situation. Mm-hmm. I think one thing is Lamar has a responsibility himself. Outside of the team, he has a responsibility in the offseason to say, I need to work on my throwing, or I need to work on my progressions, my reading, how fast I'm processing information. So I think some of it is Lamar. Some of it obviously is the system, because you're not saying this is what's best for him. Let's give him something where he can read fast and then move if he needs to. So I think it's a combination, but I do feel like part of this is Lamar. Lamar needs to be spending that time to become an overall better quarterback. You have the running, the athleticism, those things down. You need to work on your pocket presence, your mechanics, things like that. Similar to what another guy I don't want to name because I get accused of bringing up Eagles every week, but there's a guy there who understood that there were things he needed to fix. And so far, from what we've heard, except for a couple of reporters attempted to get clickbait by saying things that are true, for the most part, what we've heard is that he's improved. So I think that's a thing that a lot of people aren't necessarily talking about Lamar, is that there's a responsibility he has too to say, okay, I need to be a better passer. I need to spend my off seasons, I need to spend that time working on that skill. And that's something that he can do. There's quarterback gurus that can help, but I'm not saying he's ever going to be great at it. I'm not ever saying he's going to be, a top tier passing quarterback. But there is improvement that you can make yourself, outside of the team. And that's something he needs to do. And if he is doing it, then he definitely needs some receivers.
Yeah, and that's the only thing that I would slightly retort is that even if Lamar becomes the greatest passer in the world, if his receivers cannot get open, it doesn't matter. We will never know, right? We'll just sit back and we'll blame it on the system or the coach. But right now, when you look at his receiving core, like I tell it, just like y'all was talking about Aaron Rodgers and what is he going to do now that Devontae Adams gone, right? Yeah. And we're like, well, he's going to have to figure it out. And then he criticizes receiver, right? And it's because and his receiver core that he has right now is still probably better than what Lamar has in Baltimore. So, I mean, but you can't even name a receiver in Baltimore outside of the tight end that Lamar has to throw the ball to. So it's tough.
He actually has two guys. They're not really proven, but he has two guys that they are supposed to be good, and that's Rashad Bateman and Devin Duvernay. The other guy, James Prochet.
They just brought in DeMarcus Robinson too.
Yeah, they did just bring in DeMarcus Robinson, so he may, at least be someone that, especially with that receiving core, that kind of, gets up the depth chart pretty quick. But I think you make the point that's very valid. Like, one of the things I always talk about in this show and whatever I do is I base on what you've done so far. Because we can sit here all day and talk about, oh, this person's going to do that this year, this person's going to do that. That's just really hope, right? Unless we've seen, like, a guy that's been playing the league 3-4 years, and every year he's got a little bit better, and then we see him start to, continue to get better. But history says that Lamar does not have good wide receivers. If these guys that they have come out and are better and make you realize, okay, they're better than we thought, cool. Congratulations to the Ravens for going out and making the right moves. But as we sit today, I have to agree with you. Like, that's one of those questionable wide receiver groups like the one in Chicago.
Yeah. And the sad part about here, and Chicago will face it at some point, is, once you pay Lamar, then you'll never get a great wide receiver in there, right? You're going to have to hit in the draft. And going from college to the NFL is a big jump. Some of them can, some of them can't. And then coming into this AFC North, is a different beast because we have winter. We have open stadiums. Right, so if you play down in Alabama or LSU or you one of those SEC guys, well, you got to come up north into this cold and learn to catch that ball. And it's a different thing when it's -2 on the field and these linebackers are hitting you.
Hey, I feel you.
Yeah.
I feel you.
San Francisco people don't understand that,
I would just point out to you that my 49ers did beat the Packers on the frozen tundra of Lambeau last year. So just saying.
Yeah. Touche. I
don't know I forget what the temperature was, but it was really cold. I'm glad I wasn't at the game. I was right here in my warm house.
And they was over there with bringing in their warm seats from San Francisco,
Yeah.
their seat warmers,
hand warmers, and everything.
You know what I'm saying?
Hey, look, y'all can laugh. We had our cheese and wine out there on the sidelines, bro.
They had their cloak. They had their cloaks on and everything on the sideline.
Cloaks.
Yes, I did.
So real quick, man, I want to wrap the conversation up here on Baltimore, but J.K. Dobbins is a guy that people expected a lot from last year. Obviously, we're gonna have to see what he does this year. There's really no way to know. But what do you think if he's able to successfully run the ball and make it to where Lamar doesn't have to constantly be the top running back on the team? What do you feel like that does for the offense?
Well, I think their running game is outstanding, right? Even last year it was okay because they were 8-3 before Lamar got hurt, and they lost all their running backs in the preseason
before the season. Yep.
Yeah. so their running game carries them a long way until you meet teams that have the capability to contain it, right? And in the AFC North, we have great linebacker play, so we make it a little bit more difficult for them. But I think at some point he still has to throw the ball, and now we got to see how both of these individuals come back from their injury, right? It's cool to say that Lamar could be whatever, but Lamar's only 197 pounds, right? Maybe, I don't know. Probably like 220 or something. He's not a big guy.
Yeah.
And then Dobbs is a running back coming off of a knee injury, I believe it was, or I thought it was an ACL or one of those CLs that he's coming off of, but I could be mistaken.
It was ACL.
Yeah, because it took him out. Yeah, so we'll see how they come back, and if they play and if they're timid, I think they'll still be in there. Jim Harbaugh is a great coach. Yeah. The organization is a good organization. I think they'll be in the mix. The AFC is tough, so I think we're all going to beat up on each other. So I don't see a team running out of the AFC like 12 and whatever, right? 12 wins. I think it's going to be more close, and at the end, we'll just have to figure out who shines. And hopefully the Ratbirds aren't there.
So what do you, as an opposing fan base, when you look at that defense out there in Baltimore, what are your thoughts on it?
Their defense is always going to be solid. They play solid, but I don't think they're great. I think they'll be solid because that's just Baltimore, right? But great, I don't think they'll be great this year. They'll be decent, but some of the firepower that you're going to look at across the league, I think they're going to have some issues. And if their offense can't score points or, too many 3-and-outs in the beginning, then that defense is going to get tired.
Yeah.
And, we built to run.
So moving to the Cleveland Browns. So I'm going to ask you this question in this way.
Yep.
Talk to me about the Jacoby Brissett-led Cleveland Browns for the first 11 weeks. And then talking about the Deshaun Watson-led Cleveland Browns.
Okay. Jacoby. If he learns how to just turn around, hand that ball off to Chubbs, he'll be great. Right? You give that, you just turn around, hand it off, play action. You'll keep them in most games. Your defense is solid, right? You still got Miles out there. He's going to cause havoc. Their secondary is pretty decent. They could, they could definitely go well with wide receivers. And their defense is solid. I thought they were good with Baker personally, but I understand that dynamic. But Jacoby, he's not a scrub, but he is what he is. He's not a starter in the NFL. He's a solid backup. And we'll see. So for 11 games, if he could go 5-6 or 6-5, based off, I'm not familiar with their schedule is for the first 11 games. I know when Deshaun comes back, they're facing Houston, right? Houston, Texas.
Funny how he got back for that game.
Yeah, amazing.
For the conspiracy.
Right? They won as 12. He was like, if you give me 11 so I can come back for Houston, it's a deal.
Yeah. That's exactly it. And the NFL said great because everyone's going to watch it. All right. So I like him. I think he's solid. He's not great. He can move a little bit. He could throw a little bit. But here's the question when I look at Cleveland, who they throwing it to, right? They got some young receivers out there who got to get proven into the AFC as well. You know, when you let Jarvis go, right? You let that veteran walk out the door.
The juice.
Yeah, and then of course, you know, Beckham left. So we got to see who he has to throw the ball to. But of course, if you can run Chubbs, a couple play actions to a tight end or something like that, to whatever his name is, Nadoki, or I can't pronounce his name.
Njoku.
There you go. And if you
I'm a Miami fan, so I know his name. You know what I'm saying?
Then I think that's a solid thing. If he could get 5 and 6, then Deshaun come back.
Man, I think if they 5 and 6, that is love. If you're Cleveland, you are happy with 5 and 6.
So let's actually talk about that real quick because I got the schedule pulled up. So they open against the Panthers. It's a winnable game.
Yep,
right?
winnable.
They can beat them.
The Jets, winnable game.
Winnable.
Then the Steelers.
They're probably gonna lose that one.
We'll probably where they playing at?
That one's in Cleveland.
In Cleveland. You know, they play as well. Big Ben killed them. But I don't know about Mitch.
So we'll say 50-50 right now on that one. Okay.
No, we'll take that. I'm going to just be honest. We'll take that one. So let's say 2-1.
Okay. So then they got the Falcons.
They can beat the Falcons.
They should beat the Falcons. Yeah.
They should beat
the Falcons. Then it starts to get a little bit real because then they got the Chargers, the Patriots, the Ravens, the Bengals, the Dolphins, the Bills, and the Bucks.
So I think they could beat the Dolphins. That'll put them at what? 4 wins, maybe?
It's at least 4 wins.
Right. And then when you're talking division games, you just never know, right?
If they can win one of those, they could get to 5 wins if they can win one of those division games.
Yeah,
if they win 5, that's love.
Yeah, because those games in a division, there's generally not no blowouts, right? So you're talking 17-14 or something. So it could be very easily, very easy. Last part of the game, they kick the field goal and win the game. Right. So they could be 4 or 5 wins before Deshaun comes back. Now, I don't think they're a playoff team, but it's definitely depending on how everything else could fall, right? Because we're all going to kill each other in the division, right? So, you know, if 10 and 7 get you out of the division, Deshaun comes back. And if he plays well, now Deshaun hasn't played in almost 2 years. So we got to, you know, and he didn't look good in that preseason game that he
did not. He did not.
And just to be honest, I'm not I think Deshaun is a good quarterback, but I don't think he's as big as everyone's making him. Simply because he hasn't, a couple playoff games, but he hasn't done enough for me to put him like he's the savior of Cleveland. Right. But same thing, if he could turn around, hand it off to Chubbs and make some passes. But his team now looks the same way it looked when he was in Houston, just in a better division.
Well, I'll say this. The one thing that the Browns have going for them, no matter who is at quarterback, they have 3 quality running backs. One of them doesn't want to be there anymore, but now they have 3 quality running backs because Hunt is good and Dearness Johnson. Either one of them boys out, he snaps. And believe me, I scooped him up in fantasy last year when I saw those injuries, and he helped out quite a bit. He snaps when he gets the opportunity. So I think that's a good positive for them. I think they're one of the only teams where they really have 3 guys who possibly could be starting running backs, on their depth chart. So I think that's a big plus for them because, you run a running back a few times. You got to take him out. He got hit. He got a little tired. Yeah. You can turn in another guy that may not be as big, as strong, but can still go out there and get it done. That might be good for him. They did pick up Amari Cooper. I'm going to say this on that real quick. To me, Amari Cooper is an okay number 1, a really good number 2. But he's clearly the best on this team. Yeah. And then Donovan Peoples-Jones, he's been there. He hasn't really proven much, like you said. David Bell, he's a rookie, so definitely agree. Again, another team. When we talk about all these teams that have 2-3 solid wide receivers, and you look at some of these teams, you're like, well, that explains it. That's why all these teams have 2-3 wide receivers, because we have all these teams that really don't have the depth or talent that they needed the wide receiver position.
Yeah. And so you look at Deshaun when he was in Houston, right? He had great running backs, right? He had D-Hop on the outside, right?
Yep.
He had J.J. Watts on defense, like Myles Garrett. You got a Mark. It's basically the same squad, but they're in a tougher division. So I'm curious to see how he could take these hits in the AFC North. Like we know we play hard ball in the AFC North. Two, he was down in that good old sun, and I think their stadium was a dome, isn't it? Or it has the ability to be a dome, I think, down in Houston.
I believe theirs is retractable, if I remember correctly.
So I think it's retractable. So we'll see what Deshaun does in the winter, right? You can't just take, this isn't Madden, man. We can't just take one player and put him somewhere and think everything is just going to be cool because of his name. We've seen big time quarterbacks. Where's Jamarcus Russell? Where's Ryan Leaf? Right? Where's these other quarterbacks? Where's Baker Mayfield? He was the savior, right? Now he's in Carolina. Yeah. Where's Ryan? Where's my man?
Every time you say Jamarcus Russell, man. Every time you say Jamarcus Russell, man, I just think about they gave him blank tapes. And then he talked about he watched them and all that. They're like, bro, they're blank tapes. You clearly never watched even a minute of one of them. It's terrible.
Yeah, so I just say that because even Carlton Wentz, he's with the Commanders now. They thought he was the savior of Philly. So
Carson
and now he's on his third team. So just saying, I get what they're saying, but $230 million for a guy who hasn't played in over a year and a half and be 2 years by the time you get him is tough.
Yeah, but you also do have to kind of think about the other side of that equation. I mean, the Rams last year, because they actually managed to stay healthy, because I know they ain't got no depth. So a couple of injuries, they would have been done. But they managed to stay healthy, and Matthew Stafford put them over the top. Although he really did so only by playing just decent enough, because he really didn't play that great most of the season, especially down the stretch. He didn't play that great. But
the only people you can't tell that to is Ram fans. I just want to throw that in there.
You can't tell Rams fans anything. But the thing is, man, when I look at this, I agree with you to an extent. Right? It's not like you didn't have talent around you in Houston and you really couldn't do anything. Yeah. And it's not like Bill O'Brien was a terrible coach. He was a terrible GM, but he was actually a good coach. So the thing is do I expect that he's going to come in and just automatically make Cleveland into a Super Bowl contender? Not necessarily. But I don't think most people argue that he is better than Baker, though.
$230 million guaranteed better than Baker?
Yeah, not my money, man.
That I don't know.
The bottom line for me is simply this. He definitely, I think, is a little bit better, but Tim Couch.
There goes a name for you.
You wild for that. You wild for even bring that up. But hey, it is a part.
Hey man, Heisman Trophy winner.
Bring up. There's a lot of names we can bring up, but I'm gonna stop because it can get embarrassing for Cleveland. I think the bottom line though is this exactly. The bottom line is for me, this team, this is a wash year, right? Like the best you're probably gonna be is 9-8, 8-9. Best case scenario. It's probably a wash this year. But you get a chance to get Deshaun Watson out for about 6 games or so and get a chance to, have him work with the team, see what he's got, see how much rust he needs to shake off, and then just go into next season preparing to be better. I think they're definitely going to be one of the bottom 2 teams in the division. And that's just, what I think about that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I believe they'll be competitive, back when they had Burfitt and all, Pac-Man Jones and all them, right? I think they'll be a competitive team for like one season. But after, next year they'll be good. But then once that 230 kick in, who else can you afford to get? Right? Yeah. And that's the problem when you pay these quarterbacks all this money. So we could talk Matthew Stafford, but remember the Rams went out and loaded up every section of their defense, right? Mm-hmm. And then went out and got good wide receivers. So they went all in. They gave up first-round draft picks and everything to build this team at every level. You had the one they got from Denver, the linebacker at Denver. You had the corner that they grabbed, right?
You had Jalen Ramsey, Von Miller. Yeah. You already had Donald, who you drafted.
Yeah.
Yeah, then you bring in Odell Beckham. You already had Cooper Kupp, and you already had a decent running game. All you needed was a quarterback to just not lose the game for you, right?
Yeah.
And that's what they did. That's all. That's what they did. Cleveland's not the same. You just getting the quarterback, but you don't have all the other pieces outside of Myles Garrett and Chubbs, right? And the 3 running backs, right? But the different levels will be challenging.
I mean, I do feel like their defense is good. It's not as good as the Rams defense, right? With the exception of Myles Garrett. He's the only guy on that defense that is at that level.
He is a monster.
He's a monster.
But, like going Billy Villa, commented earlier, laughing to me, the Browns can win all these games with a backup, but, the Lions are going to struggle. So Billy, I'm going to make this very clear to you once again. He said the Lions will be better this year. That means if you only won 3 games last year, we're probably picking you to win like 6 or 7 games, which means we think you might be able to win some of these same games we're picking Cleveland to win.
Yes,
the problem is you were also playing good teams, sir. You're not going to win all them games.
You're not.
So, Billy, since you have such an issue with our prediction, we want to hear how many games you think the Lions are going to win this year. Tell us that.
Yes, that's what I want you to tell us. Yes. And if you want to break it down game by game, so be it. We'll take it.
All right, so we're gonna keep it moving on along here, and this is your time to shine now, because now we want you to talk to us about the Pittsburgh Steelers.
And I'm not gonna say anything. This is all you, bro. You got
it, man. Hey, I mean, there's no more to say besides Super Bowl contenders. And I'll have the Super Bowl party at my house. But the Steelers this year, I think we're going to shock a lot of people. I think, as Mike Tomlin says, we're not paying our quarterback. So that's one of the benefits. A lot of money was put into Big Ben where we couldn't move it around. Now that Big Ben's gone, we took all that money and put it on defense. So we paid Fitzpatrick. We brought in the linebacker Miles Jack, right? We have TJ Good from last year. We paid Deontay Johnson. So that money is now scattered around where our defense, we're good at every level in our defense. And if Devin Bush could play like he did his rookie year, at least halfway, then we're very solid on our team. Right, our defense should be top 5 this year, and the offense. Right, the question is, we have young talent, Claypool. We have George Pickens. He is as advertised. Right, if you haven't seen him or look him up. This guy is incredible. The way he could move his body to make these catches is crazy. Pat's another year. Najee's another year. We have McFarland's back, right? So we have a speedy running back that's different than Najee. We brought in another running back, Jalen. What's his name? Jalen Jeremy or something like that. He was an unrestricted Warren. Brought him in, my man, and he runs like a monster, right? So we got a brand new offensive line. We got a brand new offensive line coach. We got and the secret weapon is Florence. We got Flo. Right, we got a assistant coach who was the head coach of Miami, and that defense gave everyone fits when he was the head coach of Miami, and he's on our team teaching that defense. The only hole that we really have is we have to figure out, is Mitch the guy or is Kenny going to come in at some point? And Mason, he's in the mix, but I think we'll trade Mason. And for my man who's in Detroit, the rumors are they're going to trade Mason to Detroit. So Detroit might actually get a quarterback who's equal to the one that they currently have. Right. So if that happens, then it just opens the door for Mitch and for Kenny to eventually take over Mitch. Kenny will be the starter, if not by the end of the season, definitely next year.
Now, Peyton, I got one question I have to ask you. How do you feel about your tight end position?
Oh, I think our tight end position is on fire. Pat, I always mess up his name. We call him Pat, right? You hear him in the crowds. He came out of Penn State. I think he too will become one of the top 5 tight ends in the league. It's his second year, but you see what he did with Ben. Now, the question is, of course, right? It's easy to look at last year, but Ben was there.
Mm-hmm.
Who has that chemistry now with Mitch? And his offense is going to look totally different than it did with Ben because we have quarterbacks who are mobile. So Ben couldn't run for the past 4 years, right? He couldn't really move. And under the Matt Canada offense, there's a lot of motion and movement, and the quarterback moves the pocket. So Mitch could run, Kenny could run. Mason's a statue. He doesn't really fit. He can move a little bit simply because he's still young, but in 3 years, he won't be able to move either. So, but I think that tight end position that we have is going to be fire. But once again, young, with our quarterbacks, their job is going to be simple. Hand it to Najee. Hand it to Najee, play action to Johnson or to Claypool or to Pickett or to Calvin Austin, who we just got in the draft this year. And that guy runs a 4.2 40. Right. So I think we're set. Plus, we got one of the best coaches in the league and a head coach on defense, a head coach on offense. Man, we fired everybody and got all new everything for this year because, as Mike T says, the standard is the standard. And we went number 7.
So my question for you, early in camp, a lot of conversation about Trubisky not looking that great. So what's kind of the latest? Like, are you hearing that he's got a lot better, that the team's going to be, a lot more comfortable going forward with him? You guys want to send a 4th rounder to San Francisco because I got a guy? I try to trade him every week, man. Nobody's taking him yet.
This dude, man.
I think Trubisky's going to be serviceable, right? He got good pedigree. He's number 2 drafted overall. He sat behind Josh Allen for a year with that coaching staff up there that made Josh Allen. For what we're asking him to do, I think he'll be fine, right? Move the pocket, make plays with your feet. The one problem that I have with him that I haven't seen as much in camp is the deep throw. I would like to see him come off of one of those play actions and let the ball just rip. So he likes to take that mid-range deal, and that could be the call for the play. But I also think that was one of the hits on Trubisky when he was in Chicago, kind of the same thing. He just wasn't that he make those reads, but he's not tossing it down the field to let these guys have an opportunity.
Not enough. Not getting out on naked bootlegs enough.
Yeah, yeah. But if Najee is running, because they're going to have to stack that box to stop Najee.
Yeah, they are.
Which is going to leave our young wide receivers one-on-one with a lot of these corners. And I figured Deontay will probably get the best corner on any defense, which is going to then open that up for Pickens or Claypool the same way Juju was always one-on-one when we had AB. Yeah. And he looked good until he got the double teams. And then it was like, okay, where's he at?
Not the same player, yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you, man. I think that, Pittsburgh goes as far as your quarterback position can take you this year, right? Because your defense is going to be up near the top. You've got a monster running game. You got some good wide receivers. So your quarterback doesn't need to do a lot. You just need a guy who's going to be smart and go out there and play within the system and make the plays that they need to make. That's going to be the biggest thing. And you have a fantastic coaching staff. So.
Oh, yeah. And, history, when Big Ben came into the league, it was, we were able to get him because that year we had a lot of injured players. So we didn't play well, and we were able to get him in the draft early in the first round. But by the time he came back, everyone was healthy. So he had a complete team around him where Coward only wanted him to throw the ball 15 to 20 times a game. The rest, he was handing it off to the bus.
Yeah.
Right? And that's kind of where we are now. Our team is pretty set for where we are. We just need, whether it's Mitch or Kenny, which, Kenny's from Pitt. He's out of Pitt. So, I'm cheering for Kenny. But he has that team.
In cold weather.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and he knows how to. So does Mitch. He played in Chicago. So But Kenny can play in cold weather, and Kenny played in the stadium. So he's very familiar with the stadium. He's very familiar with the weather. His hands are big enough now, I guess. And if he can hand that ball off to Najee and make those throws, that's all we need him to do for the first couple of years before he can develop into that drop back throw type of quarterback.
So Billy did respond to you. Said Detroit shouldn't trade for a QB when they can draft one with the 2 first-round picks that are coming up. And he also says that he thinks the Lions can give it to between 7 and 9 based on schedule. So in other words, you're basically agreeing with what we said, except for we're going on the lower end of that prediction. So
you're going more like 6-7. You're going 9. So you're mad about 2 wins.
Yeah,
gotcha.
Yeah, and a lot of teams, man. Like when you're talking about Detroit or you talk about Cleveland, those are not organizations that are used to winning, right? So their culture is not necessarily winning. So,
yeah, I think that gradual build, that's the thing. Like, and it's not a knock for teams, but I think you can have teams kind of flip that, but it's a gradual build because, like you said, you have to change the culture. You have to get the right players in. If you're bad long enough, you're going to hit on players. You're going to get the opportunities, and then you're going to start to win games. So that you're not going to continue to get those blue chip guys necessarily. And you're going to have to be more intentional with the picks that you make. But I think there's some teams on the rise. I think seriously, we joke about Detroit a lot on the show, But I think Detroit, Cleveland are teams that are starting to do things to head in the right direction. If you can't draft a quarterback, go get one. Doggone it, if he's not good enough, he's not good enough. But you got to do something because when you're going and drafting guys, it's not working out. None of them are working out.
Yeah. Go out there and get your quarterback, even if you got to pay him $230 million guaranteed.
Hey, you know what you got to do. If you want to win, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
I just don't know how you pay for one who's been out of the league for a year.
I don't know how you pay what they pay guaranteed. Like, I don't even have a problem with numbers, but they guarantee.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if he had a couple MVPs or he was in the race for MVP or he got them deep into the playoffs or like, he's Mr. Pro Bowl. Like if he's killing his division and he's just not winning when he plays other people in the playoff, okay, he's worth the money. Peyton Manning is worth the money.
Yeah.
Right? Even when he went 2-12 his first, like he's worth the money. Deshaun, I just don't get that from him. He's a good player, but he's not better than Lamar. Right?
Yeah, I think it depends on what aspect of the game you're talking about. I think he's a better pure passer than Lamar is.
Lamar throws rockets, but I think they're just by a little bit.
Yeah. So now Lamar got an arm now. His his accuracy sometimes is a little up and down, but he got a laser on
decision making. But the arm is not a problem.
I'm just curious. How would it look if Lamar had D-Hop with him?
Oh, we didn't talk about that.
Or wide receiver of that caliber on his team.
Mm-hmm.
Where do they go then? Deshaun had it. And where did they go?
That'd be an interesting question to have answered. So Billy said to your comment about teams turning around, and Cincinnati did it. And the thing is, sometimes you do manage to get that guy, right? I mean, getting Joe Burrow was a huge thing for them.
Yeah, they have a much better wide receiver core.
Yeah.
A much better defense. And when you were able to put Joe Burrow with that was pretty good. And that's a great segue, as a matter of fact, Billy. We appreciate you because we're talking about Cincinnati. I mean, it's really not a lot for me to say simply. When you look from top to bottom, I think they have the most solid receiving core. They don't have the best running game just because that's clearly in Cleveland. But they have the good 1-2 in Mixon and P. Ryan. P. Ryan can be a decent number 2 running back. Yeah. A-line is actually really good at times. They did make some changes, which they needed to. They got a center. They put inside a center and a right guard in free agency. They drafted a left guard, Cordell Volson. So they did a lot to kind of revamp that line because if not, Joe Burrow was going to spend most of his time on his back.
Yeah.
We're sitting there watching the Super Bowl, the determinant play in the Super Bowl, and Aaron Donald's just flying through line 3. And I'm like, dude, you need to block.
He's the one guy that shouldn't be free. Yes.
That's what I'm saying. Because if you gave Burrow a few more seconds, he had a guy streaking open, but he could not get to him because Aaron Donald was on him. It's like Aaron Donald was standing there and nobody was in front of him playing sandlot football. That's what it looked like.
Mm-hmm.
But they improved their interior of the line. That was the main problem. Left guard, right guard, and center. Like I said, they signed Ted Karras and Alex Kappa to those two positions. Then they drafted a guy in the 4th round who's right now is their starter. So they've done what they need to do to fix their weakness from last year. To Billy V's point, they did kind of shoot out of nowhere last year. We'll see if they have the staying power. But the defense, I will just say this. I'm going to do what my co-host does every week, but I'm going to do it a little differently. Cincinnati, pick up that phone because Jesse Bates ain't trying to be there, and let's make this move. You could use a backup wide receiver and a backup left guard, and we got both of them for you. Let's go.
I'm gonna tell you, man. My co-host would make a much better general manager than me because he's always looking for ways to get his team better. I'm just be trying to get rid of guys, I'm just trying to get some value in return, man.
I could definitely understand both. Because Philly
put
needs
us together, man. We could run a team.
Yeah, I mean, let's figure that out.
Really good,
right, it's only a couple $1 billion. We can start an investor group. I got the first $5. I got the first 5.
Yeah, Peyton coming out here, head coach, man. We got it.
I got 5 on it too.
We 10 deep already trying to get this organization. We can battle Lions.
Bro, we about to make real Billy V about to come up on here and just pile drive everybody in this joint.
So Ian says the Bengals will win the division, but not represent the AFC in the Super Bowl again this year.
I agree. I agree. I think I put it this way: they have the tools to win the division. I think they're going to get because here's the problem, right? When you make it to the Super Bowl, everyone in your division has the whole off season to build a team to be ready to face you again. Mm-hmm. Right. So everyone had this off season, all defensive coordinators in the AFC North looked at Cincinnati and we're ready for them now. We got more tape on Joe, right? Their young wide receiver is a monster, right? Their receiving core is outstanding, but there's more tape on him now, right? Chase is a monster, but now there's more tape on Chase, right? Mm-hmm. People are going to play them differently this year. So we're going to see the progression in them and they did get there fluky last year. I think their inexperience showed in the Super Bowl, but they're definitely a good team. Their coaching staff is a very good coaching staff, and I think they're going to be definitely very competitive. And in our division, we're going to beat each other up, but the problem is once we get to that playoffs, now here comes the Buffalo Bills. Here comes the Kansas City Chiefs. Here comes the Chargers. Here comes the Raiders, right? Here comes Denver. Right? So there's so many teams that once you get to that playoffs, man, there's really Hunger Games at that point. So we'll see if they matured enough to get through the gauntlet. Because whoever makes it, I'm going to put this out right now. Whoever is representing the AFC in the Super Bowl will win the Super Bowl. They're just going to have to go through more than what the NFC people have to do in order to get there. So you heard that. You heard it first take right here, Peyton Tomlin. I said it. AFC will represent whoever represents in the Super Bowl will win it this year.
See, I'm going to tell you though, I would agree regular season wise that might be a true statement, right? Unless you're talking about Buffalo, who doesn't quite have the same level of toughness as some of the other teams might have to go through. But you look at the NFC. If you look at the teams that are likely to make the playoffs, it's not an easy path through the NFC playoffs. It is not an easy path at all. You're talking about the Bucks. You're talking about the Packers. You're talking about the 49ers. You're talking about the Rams, the Eagles, the Cowboys. I mean, those are all good teams, and I hate to say that about the Cowboys, but
yeah, thank you. That can we edit that? Take them off.
you see, I had to say good team because I wanted to say great teams, but then I was like, one of the teams on the list ain't great. So
I thought he was stopping, and then he added the Cowboys. I'm like, I mean, they could be. But yeah.
I mean, I'm just looking at who's likely to make the playoffs, and then
and I hear what you're saying, but I think here's the only caveat that I have. Tampa Bay doesn't have a tough division to go through in order to win that division, nor does Green Bay, nor does San Francisco now, depending on how Kyle Murray acts, right? Because Seattle got rid of their game player, right? So y'all should. So for all the teams you name, they should win. They have no competition to get
Arizona. Still got Arizona, man.
Hey,
that's why I said depending on how he plays.
The 49ers
send a follow-up to you after the show.
Rams.
Yeah, so those are the only two. Like, so Dallas will probably win their division. I hope not, and I hate even saying that. I should burn my tongue. But they'll probably win, and then we know they're going to fold first round, right? If Eagles win, they'll fold first round as well. The NFC East just fold like a lawn chair once they hit.
Worst take of the year. All I gotta say is I'm not gonna be talking about it because I'm hosting, but we're gonna see you October 30th.
I'm looking forward to it. And
I'm gonna be there.
Is the 49ers the same without Jimmy G? We don't know. We have to see. But
you got the Rams over there too, though.
And the Rams too. So I mean, there's tough teams, but what I'm saying is I don't see them being overly pushed like these teams will have to be in the AFC. Right?
So I think when you got to
quarterback play,
you got to realize this.
Quarterback play is huge.
I'll let you finish that. Yeah, that's true. But you got to realize this too. The fact that you're saying the NFC has some good teams, but there's not as many teams like that second level, that means that we should be fresher and better prepared to beat each other through the playoffs to get to the Super Bowl. Because we're not going to have to do. So
good take. Or soft.
I don't know who's going to win.
How you want to look at it. I look at quarterback play. Let's look at quarterback play. Trey Lance, first year starting. Your boy up in Philly, first year start.
Do you really want to look at quarterback play when you got Mitchell Trubisky though?
Hold on, maybe. Right, and I didn't say Steelers were going to go. Right, but I hear you. I don't disagree with that yet. Right, we'll get there. But at least he's been in the league 5 years, 6 years, and he's been to 2 playoffs. So, okay, right, winning record in Chicago with nobody, and Nagy as his coach, right? But, okay.
That is fair. That is fair.
I hear you, right? But I'm saying, like, Tom Brady, we don't even know. He's missing. Where is he? We don't know where he's at. Like, is he coming back? Is he going to play?
Tom Brady.
I'm singing, filming a Masked Singer, man.
He don't need no preseason. He don't need no preseason. You know what I'm saying? This dude is doing whatever he can to get out in the hot. And sweating out all that avocado ice cream. He's not trying to do that.
And Tom's legit, right?
Yeah, Tom's legit.
But who else?
I don't like to say it, but he is.
The quarterback over there for the Rams.
Aaron Rodgers.
Right? Aaron's legit, but like y'all, he folds lately, right?
Only against one team.
Right? Right?
As long as you can stay away from them. How about that?
Yeah, as long as
if you can avoid that, that's good.
And then you got Kyle Murray, and he was complaining all season about money. He got it, so we'll see.
Yeah, but he don't have D-Hop for about 6 weeks either.
So now when you put that up against Josh Allen or Mahomes or Joe Burrows or the kid in San Diego, right? Or Russell Wilson.
San Diego folds too, though. The kid in San Diego.
But he's you to go watch last week's episode.
He can't make the playoffs.
True. But he's a kid, right? Like, so I expect him to have this is third year, right? Third year, the biggest jump, right? This is the biggest jump this year for them. So we'll see, right? Everyone done, they crown him the next whoever, right? But I'm with you. He got to prove it. But when you look at that quarterback play, even the Raiders, right? Carr.
I'm a Carr fan. A lot of people want to hate on Carr. I'm a Carr fan. So when you get into that, and then it depends on where they play. Right, so maybe with Jimmy G, I was able to go to Green Bay and win. Can y'all do that with Trey?
So this is what I'm gonna tell you on Trey real quick. So no. I do think that there's gonna be some bumps early in the season, right? But just like what you just got through saying about Trubisky. That running game we had in San Francisco is going to do most of the damage. Look at the receiving core. IU started taking a step at the end of last year. He's really been a standout in camp. You got Debo, you got Kittle,
nice.
Danny Gray looking good as a rookie, like the speedster. So really, you're not asking Trey to come in there and do a whole lot on offense, right? You're asking him to come in and make a couple throws, hit a couple of deep balls that Jimmy could never hit. Is going to spread the defense out a little bit, right? And then outside of that, you're asking Trey to be smart enough to let that defense, which remember, they went out and took care of the only weakness that defense had was at corner. They went out and signed Javarius Ward. The secondary is good now. So they took care of the only weakness on the defense. That's going to be a top 5 defense probably too.
Yeah.
So the only way the 49ers get in trouble, in my opinion, this year is if Trey Lance tries to do too much.
Or get hurt.
Yeah, if he gets hurt, then what are you talking about, bro? We got Nate Sudfeld. That's a guaranteed Super Bowl victory right there.
Yeah, I think it's going to be good. I just think the AFC this year has the better overall talent.
I just had to come out and see his reaction.
And it should be able to win. Now, I'm definitely worried about those, the LA Rams, right? And depending on how that folds, that team's still together for the most part, right? But they lost that line. But I see you pointing at them dirty birds, man, and we'll see. We'll see.
I'm hoping my QB gonna do what he need to. That's the question. But I believe in him.
Your division is getting a little bit tougher. The Commanders are looking a little bit better. The Giants are supposed to be a little bit better this year. But this is also just 2 years ago. The losing record won your division, right?
The Giants are looking better.
And the Cowboys are the Cowboys.
Quarterback. Right? I'm not buying that quarterback in Commander Land.
But real talk, man. I do understand where you're coming from with your take. Right now, if you were to look at it, you would say the proven teams in the AFC have more experience and are better put together than most of the top teams in the NFC.
Yeah.
But
besides the Chargers.
But the thing I would say is a little questionable on the take is we need to see what some of these NFC teams are going to be, right? We need to see what is Jalen Hurts going to do now that he has an A.J. Brown added to that receiving core, right? We need to see, are they going to be able to continue the success they had with the run game last year that started to pick up at the end of the year? Because if so, Philly could be a very dangerous team. Dallas might actually take a step back, right? Because I don't know, I mean,
they take a step back every year.
CeeDee Lamb disappeared last year when he had to become the guy. So I'm not confident if I'm a Dallas fan right now.
They should never be
like
confident.
I said, it depends on what happens with Trey Lance. I personally think Arizona is going to take a step back, not because of Kyler Murray, but because I think this is the year that pretty much everybody has Cliff Kingsbury figured out. And it's not going to take to the end of the year for people to expose it this year. We're going to see it early in the season. That's why I think Arizona is going to struggle, but they could surprise us because they have talent. Yeah. It is not a talent devoid team.
They got
and schedule, and schedule will help a lot of these teams out, right? And for them, but that is also the blinder, right? They'll have a weak schedule and they'll look good, and then they'll get to the playoffs and get smoked, right? But we'll see. This is my early prediction. We'll talk midway in the year, and I might be like, I was totally wrong, right? I'm like, forget everything I said, or I was totally right. And then we'll have
at the end of every few weeks. Like, and then just want to make sure if you're standing by your declaration or not, sir.
Yeah, you'll see some question marks probably, but but I would try to stay as true as I can. And of course, injury schedules. I don't know everyone's schedule. Unfortunately, I'll have probably better take on it. But we'll see how this plays out. But my Steelers will be in the mix, and Trubisky will probably be benched midway in the season for Kenny. So. Not for playing bad, but just because he's not. I think they're the same player. I don't think you're getting anything with Trubisky that you're not getting out of Kenny, except for experience. And the only way you get experience is by playing. So we'll see how that works.
That's a take for you.
It is, y'all.
That takes grapefruits to make that kind of take.
Yeah. I mean, hey, man. if there's one thing I think we can all agree on, is this: you cannot talk sports if you're not going to be wrong sometimes.
Yeah. Unless it's Back to the Future, man, and we go get that almanac, you know.
So Ian says he had to pick the NFC playoffs right now. It's got the Rams, Bucks, Eagles, Vikings, Packers, 49ers, and Cardinals. Green Bay with no receivers misses.
That's some grapefruits right there too.
That's some grapefruits right there.
That's grapefruits.
That's not.
That's cantaloupes.
Oh wait. The grapefruits have been put up, and we brought the raisins out.
Okay.
Now, I will say this, and this is my. It took a second to marinate it, and it hit. I will say this, and this is my way out the park take. Watch Carolina with Baker.
Hey,
what?
I tease the Panthers all the time, but I've been telling people I believe 8 to 9 wins. And then a couple of games go the way that they shouldn't. A couple of games we expect them to lose, they win. I agree, man. Baker is the best quarterback they had since prime Cam Newton.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I was shocked that they paid $230 for Deshaun, who ain't play. And Baker played last year injured. So a healthy Baker with a decent running game, with a good defense, calm them down, coach them up, right? Tell them don't do some crazy stuff, and just hand the ball off to Chubbs. And it'd be the same record. Like I don't see Deshaun moving that needle too much.
My question with Baker is, and obviously we may never really know exactly what happened, but just with everything in the window with Odell, and then seeing how he went and started playing better in LA, and then with Landry, and kind of a lot of the fingers getting pointed at Baker, like you do have to wonder behind the scenes, was Baker the wrong leader for that team?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think there's no question to that. Yeah.
I think that's a big reason why
he needed to go somewhere else. Yeah. And he needed to go somewhere else, but that doesn't mean his career is over. It just means sometimes that first stop is not the stop. Wow,
so apparently Billy does not agree to Baker's real QB.
That's He's fair. Hey man, I mean the thing is, he could be right. I could be wrong.
Yeah, but the Lions are going to win 9 games with
Jared Goff.
Jared Goff.
Who couldn't get it done with primetime players. But
hey,
he's entitled to have his opinion, guys. He's entitled to have his opinion.
If McCaffrey can stay, safe, right? If he don't fall over the grass,
you can just stop talking. You can just stop talking already. Yeah, nothing you say after that's gonna come true. So you must have just stopped right there.
That's the biggest if.
Good point. Fair. No more take. I'm good.
Fair enough. So Peyton, I know we're about to end things here in a few minutes. So give you opportunity to just tell everybody where they can find you at, man.
Hey, how you doing? So I'm starting a podcast myself. It's called the Leadership Podcast. Okay. It's a podcast focused on leadership in all industries across the any industry, life, relationships, anything. Just providing some insight, bringing some people on, some guests. I would love to have both of you on there at some point. And we're just going to talk about things from a leadership perspective and just give our opinions, and hopefully it can help some people out. A little bit of academics, but more experience and things of that. You two both have a podcast that you run. And I'm sure there were people who were curious how to start that, how to lead it, how to get people to get onto your podcast. What do y'all do behind the scenes to get it moving and as popular as it is? So you can find me. It's called the Real Leadership Podcast by Peyton P.T. Tomlin. It'll be on Apple, Spotify, and eventually I'll get video out. Right now it will be solely audio.
Okay, cool. Appreciate you coming on, man.
Yeah,
can't wait to have you on for the Matchup Madness, and we're going to have a lot of fun.
Hey, just one more thing before I leave. There's only one city in Pennsylvania, and it is called Pittsburgh. Thank y'all, gentlemen. I appreciate it.
That is complete hogwash, haberdashery, and poppycock at the same time.
I tried to slide out with that.
The Battle of Pennsylvania will be won by Who's Flying High, and that's gonna be These Birds. Let's go, October 30th. Can't wait.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it.
All right, man. Appreciate you coming. Have a good one.
You too.
So yeah, man. Good times, man. Good times. Let's take it into the last 20 seconds of the show here, man, and wrap this thing on up for the evening. So before we do that, just want to shout out everybody who joined us. Whether you're just tuning in tonight, hopped up in the comments, participate in the chat. Much love. Always appreciate everybody who tunes into the show every week. Much love if you're catching the replay too. Know everybody can't make Friday nights live, so
Absolutely.
we appreciate you still investing that time to catch the show. Sorry that we're giving you an extra long show tonight. Totally cool if you need to break it up in 2 parts.
I'm not sorry at all.
So, any final words you want to add before we roll the credits here, sir?
Absolutely, sir. So, shout out to USC 5-star commit Malachi Nelson, who has signed with Clutch Sports, first high school player to have signed, and will be eligible to get NIL deals and things starting this season. Big ups to him for being a trailblazer in that. I myself have a high schooler, so going to be watching this very closely and see how it works out. So excited for him. Hopefully he becomes the guy that everyone wants him to be. He's the second-rated player behind, of course, Arch Manning. You're not going to top him in any ranking. Just hear that last name, you know what it is. But so congratulations to him for being a trailblazer in that, and hopefully this is something that, you know, can spread and help some of these kids once they get to that point where they're juniors, seniors in high school, and they're kind of able to, hopefully with help from parents, make some of these decisions and start to tap in on their NIL.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Got to pay for college somehow.
That's right, man. So with that, man, we are doing the final countdown here. So I just want to go ahead and give a quick shout out to our sponsors, Fanatics and EV Mugs. Also, you see on the screen, man, y'all see the logo. Make sure you go and click on that, catch that replay. And also, you're going to see a little card that's going to pop up over there on the right side. It's going to take you directly to the playlist. It's going to show you all the divisional previews. So make sure you check that out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. See y'all next
and next week, be back. It's still going to be popping. We got something working.
All the time. Holla at y'all.